All right, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like the #1 tournament dropout and #2 Kurobot, Glaive Kyo, is back at it again with another banger. And this time it's going to be focused on not Genshin Impact, not Zenless Zone Zero, not Honkai Star Rail, not a creator. It's going to be on drama within Wuthering Waves, and specifically minigames. And so this is something that I feel like I haven't really been keeping up with. I'm not exactly sure what the topic is, but I do think it might be related to the 2.1 survey that was put out, and one of the line items in that survey focused on the types of new minigames that players might have wanted to see. And I guess that's spiraling into something of its own. Gacha content is admittedly a little bit dry right now. There's not a lot going on between games, and so I guess this is where the discussion is going. So with that, let's go ahead, let's check it out, and let's see what it is all about.
Are minigames fun little distractions or the downfall of a great game? Well, apparently some people think that they are the apocalypse.
Woo, a housing system incoming? Please vote for this. Downvote. My downvote doesn't matter because this is upvoted so hard.
And I wish I was exaggerating, but no.
Well, Genocide kind of hates everything, so that's, you know, that's going to be a given there.
Single survey question in the Wuthering Waves Twitter community triggered an all-out war. Because of course it did. For those who don't know, minigames are exactly what they sound like. Small, self-contained activities within a bigger game. You've seen them before. Fishing, racing, matching tiles, or whatever developers throw in to break up the main gameplay. Usually they're just fun side content, but according to some players, the mere suggestion of them in Wuthering Waves is a threat to everything the game stands for.
Just go play Genshin Impact. Get the fuck out of my game, bro. Go play the game that was made for you, which is a casual slop fest of a bunch of worthless content. Go play that, man.
I mean, to be fair, I will pull the game up right now. It's kind of already in the game. The way that I view it is everything that was just mentioned right there by Jenna, it's quite literally in the game. This entire fishing thing, it is just a gigantic minigame. It's a well-developed one, right? That stretches very far and has a lot of playtime. But at its core, it is 1,000,000% a minigame. I guess he does have a pretty strong opinion about what's going on in the current version of the patch with this. And I'm going to be real here, right? I'm not really a big fan of this either. You can clearly see the patch has been live for about 30-something days, and I'm not really done with the fishing event yet. But, you know, I can accept that it's for like a different audience, but I can also see the perspective of, well, shit, right? Let's just focus on more like combat-oriented content. Let's focus on more of the stuff that's bringing people to Wuwa in the first place.
Oh, you gotta add a bunch of trash to my game, bro.
Now, normally, this would just be an overreaction on social media, which, let's be honest, is an everyday occurrence. But this debate actually touches on something bigger. What role should minigames even play in a game like Wuthering Waves? Do they add variety, or are they just useless fluff? Let's break it all down. Alright, let's be real. Minigames are very far from being the heart and soul of a game. If anything, they are like an adrenaline shot. Brief, exciting, and sometimes unnecessary, but they can spice things up when the main experience starts feeling repetitive. In live service games, the name of the game is longevity. These games survive by keeping players engaged over months or even years. And what actually keeps players coming back is the good gameplay, rewarding progression, and consistent updates. Minigames, they are more like a seasoning, not the main dish. That is not to say they don't serve a purpose. Minigames add variety, provide quick dopamine hits, and give players a reason to log in outside of the usual grind. But if the core gameplay sucks, no amount of minigames will save it. You are not going to stick around just because the game has a tower defense mode if the actual combat feels like you're fighting with pool noodles. Do minigames matter in a live service game? Sure, but they are not the foundation. They are not going to make or break Wuthering Waves.
My viewpoint on minigames is that minigames are like getting a Frappuccino from Starbucks, right? Imagine a Frappuccino from Starbucks. Minigames are the whipped cream. If the whipped cream wasn't there, your Frappuccino would still be like 95, 97, 98% like as enjoyable as it was before. However, sometimes the implementation of minigames can be like the ice or the cream in the Frappuccino. And they take up such a large piece of it, and if the minigame, right, is not something that people actually want, but it makes up so much of like the patch, it can be unenjoyable. However, if it's just like the whipped cream, if it's just the topping, then you could just shave it off, right? Not really worry about the minigame. Okay, what is so hard to understand here? That's like do you guys not know what a fucking Frappuccino is? The whipped cream on top of the drink. Am I talking to a bunch of cavemen?
Join me on this voyage to the world's end, my friend. Together we'll face that fleeting moment when the world turns upside down.
Now, Wuthering Waves itself is a fantastic game. Great combat, solid story, and characters that might make you feel like you want to spend more money that you don't have. Please spend responsibly. The devs have been actively improving it, fixing issues, and actually listening to player feedback. Sounds great, right? Well, apparently all of that is now at risk because of a survey question. Yes, in the 2.1 survey, the devs casually asked players if they like a new permanent minigame. No commitments, no sneak peeks, just a simple "would you be interested?" And in response, Twitter lost its collective mind. Enter one of the hottest takes of the week. Please don't vote for minigames at WooWa. It will ruin the game. Now, if you think that was a good take, bro got ratioed into another dimension. Harder than KSI getting ratioed in his own song. Safe to say that both of these people are in the thick of it.
I do think that any take that is that polarized is not inherently a good one. Because the take over here is straight up, if you want any sort of minigame added to the game, it's completely fucking wrong. The correct take, in my opinion, is please don't ask for like really high commitment, super long length minigames that you have to do, otherwise you miss a ton of rewards, and force players to play the minigame. When minigames feel a lot more optional and there's something that players want to do rather than something that they feel like they're forced to do to gain all the rewards for the patch, that's when minigames start feeling really fucking bad. That's why minigames have gotten such a bad rep, because in Genshin Impact, ironically enough, oftentimes their filler patches have gigantic fucking minigames that take literally days to do and like at least like 10 plus hours to fully complete. And that's a lot of fucking time to spend on something for the baseline rewards of the patch that you were getting not playing minigames before. But when minigames are something that are just a side activity that maybe require really low time commitment but are replayable for the full rewards, then that's something that most players really don't care about. They don't feel like they're forced to do anything. If they are, it's for a very short amount of time, and that is a very frictionless way of putting them in the game. But outwardly stating that all minigames are just bad, I don't think it's the right take.
No. People were absolutely cooking this guy, and for a good reason. Because how exactly does a minigame ruin an entire action RPG? Like, will your resonators suddenly forget how to fight because they spent 5 minutes playing Sims? Be so for real right now, lil bro. And just like that, the minigame discourse turned into an all-out war. On one side, you got the combat purists. Wuthering Waves is a combat game. Minigames are pointless. This is a Genshin.
You go play those easy baby games, okay? Let me just play a game where I get to just enjoy combat for hours, all right?
On the other side,
So in this video, is Jenna like the combat purist? Minigames in my game? Go fuck yourself. I guess that's what he's being framed as here. Okay.
on the other side, you got the variety enjoyers. Minigames and housing don't hurt combat. They just add more things to do. Ain't nobody want to sweat over tower adversity and holograms 24/7.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think the Serena Teapot in Genshin is even that bad. I actually feel like the Serena Teapot is an example of a quote-unquote a good minigame. From the perspective of, there are permanent rewards for it. You can get all of like the primos and stuff if you really want to, and you can get a lot out of it, right? If you decide to invest the time in it. However, the rewards are kind of low at a baseline, and it doesn't matter in the long run if you don't do it either. It doesn't matter in the long run if you don't actually do it. You're missing out at the end of the day on like what, like 10 pulls, maybe like 10 pulls as a total, maybe like 20 pulls, but there's a lot of grinding involved to get them, but it's also permanent. So you never feel like you're like in a rush or you have to like adjust the baseline way that you're playing the game to get everything. You can really take it like piecemeal, a little bit at a time. You always know you can do it later unless the game EOSs. And it's a very low pressure thing that still gives decent rewards if you do all of it. And I think that's a good implementation of a minigame. There are still going to be people, right, that are just like, fuck the teapot. I'm one of them. But I can recognize it's a good implementation, even if I don't play it or use it or do it ever.
And here's the reality check. Most Wuthering Waves players aren't hardcore min-max tryhards. They are most likely not down to whimper out all the waste, if you know what I mean. A massive chunk of the player base is here for the world, the lore, and let's be real, the characters. Some people don't even touch tower adversity or holograms, and they're still having a great time. Ignoring these players would be a bad move.
True. And that's why I think the Serenity Teapot is a good implementation. I'm pretty sure there are people that will never clear holograms above level 4 because they suck balls at the game. And that is perfectly 1,000,000% absolutely fine. But the thing is, if the only content somebody has left to do or grind for is content that they cannot complete because of their skill level, that might be something that actually puts player retention down. I hope you guys have thought about it from that perspective as well. If the only content somebody has left to do is content that is literally too hard for them and they don't want to learn how to do it, what are they going to do in the game? Having something permanently grindable on the side, right? Something like a Serenity Teapot that's just very giga absurdly casual that maybe the rest of the player base doesn't really care about, and then they can just, you know, have some fun on the side. It's very low pressure. That's another way to drive retention, right? Keep players spending, keep doing all of this stuff, and then go from there. It's a way to cast a wider net. You could say, oh, it's like developer resources being spent on shit that I don't like. Well, think about it this way. If they're retaining players, that means that that's also retaining the resources. Because if players don't spend money and keep playing and keep the player count up, then that means that they won't have the resources to keep adding stuff to the game. It's you gotta see the whole picture, right? You gotta take the long distance perspective of the entire situation, all the different factors as you're heading into this. Because not everybody's gonna play the game like you. Not everybody is gonna have like this full intense focus on combat. Not every person is gonna want to do all of the combat in the game.
Optional content like minigames doesn't take away from combat. If anything, it keeps more players engaged, which
True.
you know helps the game stay alive. But if you ever wondered why people are getting irrationally angry and worried about the new minigames in Wuthering Waves, it's probably because of the mental baggage left by the minigames in Genshin Impact.
Yes. Genshin Impact has had so many main event minigames. And I'm going to be honest here. I think Wuwa kind of did the same thing here with this fishing event. Main event minigames, which are meant to be like the main time expenditure of the patch. And unfortunately, this fishing minigame is like so large and so large in scope that it feels like other events in the patch, right? The other events in the patch were like taken away from in terms of like their length and playtime because so much time was factored into this. I feel like this should have been something that takes a little bit less time, is still replayable, right? But it doesn't have to take as long to get to like fame level 12 or you know, not have this many entries in the codex or only require like 30 to unlock it but have 50 total, right? Something like this shouldn't have been as large in scope because it is a very it's a far cry from what we've been typically doing in the game. It is something that's fun for a lot more of like the casual players, but I do think it should be shorter but more replayable.
So is it like a TCG? Oh my god, dude. If they add a TCG to Wuthering Waves, I think I'm uninstalling, bro. I think that might be where I draw the line. If they add a TCG to Wuthering Waves, like, I don't think I can handle it.
I do think saying that you would uninstall the game because of a TCG is a bit of a stretch, because you could just not play it. Like, you could just not play it. You know what I mean? That's like, I don't play this shit in Genshin. I never played this shit when it released.
Might be one of the worst implementations of a side mode in a live service game. Not because of the game itself is bad. Some people genuinely enjoy it, sure, but because of how aggressively it was shoved into the experience. The mandatory tutorial was a slog, and early players who bounced off of it never looked back. Even though Hoyoverse improved some of the onboarding later, first impressions matter, and those were rough. The biggest issue is that it feels like it doesn't belong. People argue that TCG drains resources from the actual game, taking the developers' time away from things that could improve core content. And since some missions force you to play it, completionists are stuck suffering through a minigame they never wanted. And even if you grind it out, what do you get? No meaningful Primo Gem rewards after the initial missions, just lucky coins, which you can only use inside the TCG ecosystem. No connection to the rest of the game. No real incentive to keep playing unless you really love card games. And even for those who do, unlocking cards is slow and tedious, requiring hours of dueling NPCs just to get the deck you actually want. This is the perfect example of a minigame that doesn't respect the player's time. Instead of being an optional rewarding break from the main game, it ends up feeling like a chore, one that still lingers in players' mind every time another gacha game tries to add a side mode. But
maybe I haven't been keeping up with Genshin because I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I just ignored the fuck out of it, and it's not that big of a deal. I feel like there are so many other events in Genshin we could have used as an example here. Let me just pull up the one that fucking ruined my life. I'd actually rather punch myself in the balls than play this one again. I'm not even joking. I'd crack a nut instead of playing this one. You can see over here, this shit was like 16 days long. Oh my god. It had so many rewards. There was so much shit you had to do. You had to grow the fucking plants. You had to pick the plants. You had to mix the plants together. You had to place where the plants are on the stock. You had to fucking read a market report to see which potion was gonna sell better, and then you sold them. This took like 12 hours. Look at this shit. Then you're like over here reading like a depth chart like you're playing fucking FIFA, but instead it's with vegetables. It took so long. There was like a beginners, there was intermediate, there was like advanced, there was like master potions. Oh god. And then you had to like wait. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, you had to buy each cultivation plot. You didn't start out with 9, you started with like 3, and then you had to buy the other 6. I mean, it was like, I could see where the design was good, but it took 12 hours. It took like 12 hours to do this. I was just like, I just want to go apply pyro and then vape, right? And then just go blow up all the enemies with my Arlecchino and my Hu Tao. I don't want to fucking do plants. That's what people, like, this is the thing. There was so much you had to do in this. Look, you had to read a fucking market report with like key highlighted words and like missing traits for what potions you had to do. Oh my god, this one ruined. It had like fucking charts. You're over here. It's like Babby's first Excel spreadsheet. This event ruined my life. This event is actually why I hate Genshin Impact. Like it went like, if my hate for Genshin Impact was at like a 6, this event alone raised it to a 9. This event alone literally raised it to a 9. Disgusting. Disgusting. And you want to know what the worst part about all of this was? You could spend 4 hours playing this event in a single day. You could spend 4 hours playing this event in a single day. Claim the rewards that you redeemed. Like, you know, it's like, oh, reach level 9, reach level 6 in like this category. You would claim like 7 of them, and you wouldn't do your dailies for the day. You wouldn't get your full encounter points. You would spend 4 to 5 hours playing this fucking event, and then you would have like 2/3 of your daily encounter points, and then you would have to go do dailies as well. Like go kill like like go like kill like the 3 like mushrooms or something. That was the part that fucked me up. 1,000,000% was playing this event for 5 hours and then still having to do my dailies after that. So yeah, that's a way better example to use. Fuck that potion event. If you liked it, I do think less of you as a person, just so you know.
Even so, not all minigames are bad. Of course, like we discussed, some might be absolute disasters, but others can be shockingly fun. Take the fishing event in Wuthering Waves. Somehow, against all odds, they made fishing fun. No obnoxious mechanics, no pointless waiting, just a well-made system that made people actually want to engage with it. It's not just there to waste your time. It is rewarding, smooth, and I dare say, enjoyable. And there's
So I guess this is the thing. Maybe I'm the person that thinks maybe I'm like the one person that doesn't like the fishing event that much. Because maybe Jenna's being like clipped out of out of context here or something. But I feel like the critiques that Jenna has been giving for minigames as a whole, it could easily be applied to fishing. Maybe I'm entirely wrong, but I do feel like, yeah, maybe he's being clipped out of context here. I do feel like everything that he said when it comes to minigames, at least in this part, right? The combat purist framing, it could be applied to the entire fishing event. Or maybe Jenna just really likes the fishing, and so it didn't lump it in. But the viewpoint that he gave on like minigames being like, it's like, oh, you like have to do it so often, it's like a waste of time in the patch. I mean, to be fair, right? Fishing is a minigame that I feel like I don't like that much, and I feel like it took away from the other event time in the patch. And so, you know, different strokes for different folks, right? You're allowed to disagree and have different opinions on things.
Here's the co-op racing event, an absolute masterclass in
I don't like this thing.
controlled chaos.
Look, just look over here, right? Because this Phoebe over here has like a lead, you might as well just stop playing. That's my viewpoint on this Apex Raguna thing. It's just, if you don't win in the first 5 seconds, you might as well just quit out.
The course design is well made, the controls are pretty solid, but the best part, you can sabotage your friends. That's right, you're not just racing, you're actively trying to ruin each other's lives.
Okay, maybe this guy's like lagging or something. I don't know how you lose a lead that fast. I don't even know what like, was this guy just griefing? How did he lose?
It's the kind of game mode that will either create unbreakable alliances or irreparable grudges. And honestly, that's what makes it so fun. And that is the difference. Wuthering Waves doesn't just throw in random mini games as filler, they do actually work. They are fun and
Male sprint is slightly faster? Oh, that wasn't slightly faster. That was like way fucking faster. I've never seen somebody lose a lead like that before.
engaging and sometimes absolutely hilarious. So the next time someone claims mini games ruin a game, just point them to Wuthering Waves and watch them completely contradict themselves.
I'm probably spending more money than these dumbasses too, okay? I got a bigger share in the company than them. So what the hell are these people contributing?
And just like how players
Aren't all his characters S0? Yeah, I'm viewing that as a joke because all of Jenna's characters are S0 except for his S6 Rosia. The only S6 character Jenna has is the child from 2.0. I do believe everybody else is S0.
want more mini games, tower defense, racing, shooting events. But here's the harsh truth for the combat purists. Casual players are the majority in literally every game. That is not an insult, that's just math. And listen, no war, just facts. Some people play because their friends do it. They log in, do a few dailies, maybe they will spend their energy if they're feeling adventurous and then dip. Some people are here for the co-op e-dating. Yes, we see you standing in game with your e-girl. No, you're not slick. I see you completely. And let's not forget the waifu or husbando collectors. You think they care about the combat meta? They're here for the trip. And honestly, I respect it. Here's why this matters. Appealing to casual players is what keeps a live service game alive.
True. I think I already raised that example in the past, right? There are some people that will never see Hikari 6. There are some people that will never do the overdrive zone in the TOA. And guess what? If that's a part of the repeatable content every single patch, especially the TOA and WeWa, if that's a significant part of the playtime because they reset every patch and it's a whole slew of new content, and there are people that aren't going to do that, well, there's got to be content for the other people. There's got to be content for people that aren't that good or don't have the mechanics or have a skill issue. And guess what? For mini games like fishing, for the other mini games and probably the permanent modes that they're thinking about, you won't need a skill issue in the baseline combat won't prevent them from getting 100% in the minigame. And similarly, right? If we're viewing it from the perspective of it's okay for people or casuals or people with skill issue to not 100% the resetting endgame, I think it's okay for the combat purists to not 100% the casual stuff. I'm fine with there being a trade-off because that's the thing. As a human being, as long as you're not being outwardly pressured by like Astrite rewards or like other rewards, you don't really have to do the stuff you don't want to do. And by keeping it permanent, that makes it better for everybody.
More casual engagement equals more revenue equals more content. But if you only cater to hardcore players, the second they get bored, your game collapses. So sure, mini games aren't for everyone, but neither is sweating through endgame content like it's the Olympics of damage rotations.
And that's why I always say have 2 modes for the combat events. Have one mode that's for the Giga casuals, and then have one mode that's actually for the sweats. And Infinite Battle Simulation, guys, is actually an event where they did that really well. They made it possible to do sweaty ass shit, and they also made a way for people that have a skill issue to easily complete it as well. And that level of like variation in the difficulty is what I think is going to be key for a game like this that has such depth to combat.
Balance matters and variety keeps people playing.
Would be nice to have a housing system in-game. No, it wouldn't. What if we can display our waifus? I'm just so against this kind of thing. You play a game for 1 or 2 things, and then they start adding a bunch of things that have nothing to do with the reason why you play the game.
One of the most requested features in Wuthering Waves is a housing system. And before anyone starts foaming at the mouth about wasted dev resources,
Yeah, you're taking the dev time from something that could actually be meaningful, and you're putting it into crap.
let's look at a game that actually did it well. Punishing Grey Raven. PGR's dorm system isn't just some useless side feature. It lets players house and interact with their characters. You know, the ones you just just spent weeks grinding for, instead of letting them rot in the menu, you actually get to see them exist outside of combat. And before anyone complains about the visuals, whether you think it looks good or not is completely subjective. What is not subjective is that it's actually useful. The system ties into the character growth, offers free cosmetics like skins, and even gives out a meta-relevant 5-star character. So yes, you do kind of have to engage with it if you want said meta 5-star character. But here's the good part. It is quick, it's easy to manage, and it doesn't drag out your playtime. You're not stuck grinding furniture or dealing with clunky systems. You're just here to log in, do what's needed, and get your rewards. Whether you...
And I think that's something that people should also factor into the whole equation when Kuro specifically is talking about minigames. Guys, it's Kuro games. It's Kuro games. Let me show you what Kuro games does when it comes to streamlining the player experience. You remember a situation where you might need to, I don't know, you need like 40 of these to level somebody up. You know how if you're playing a game like Genshin Impact, you used to have to like go to something like an interactive fucking map and see where everything spawns? This is how much friction there is for a player collecting stuff in Wuwa. Awesome, now I know where everything is. If they're gonna make it this easy and this simple and you don't have to spend that much time, Genshin has that too. Yeah, after Wuwa put it in. And Genshin's is not as good as this. Let's be real here. If this is what Wuwa is doing in the implementation to make it easier for players and not make it annoying, then guess what, guys? I'm pretty sure that any minigames that get put in, are also going to have that little friction in actually doing them and getting the rewards.
Care about decorating or not, the incentives make it worth your time. Listen, not every part of a game has to appeal to you specific. Just because you don't like minigames or housing doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means they're not for you. Shocking concept, I know. A good game caters to different types of players. Some people are here to sweat through endgame challenges. Others just want to kick back and enjoy their virtual home filled with their waifus and husbandos. Both groups can exist in peace. Crazy, right? And let's be real, if a feature doesn't appeal to you, just ignore it. You're not being forced at gunpoint to engage with minigames or decorate an apartment. But for the people who enjoy that stuff, it makes the game better for them, which means they will stick around longer, which benefits everyone. And on that note, if Wuthering Waves adds a dorm system, I will be decorating mine like a nut root, and you will not stop me.
I can't tell if you're baiting or not, but it's good content. I'm gonna be real. Everything I'm saying, I actually do believe, though. Like, I'm kind of just, you know, going overboard right now on this rant, but at the same time, I actually completely believe everything I'm saying.
I mean, can all make our takes on how much or how little Jenna's getting clipped out of context throughout this video. I feel like I was able to follow the flow of the conversation. I don't necessarily know, like, what exactly... I don't feel like he's heavily misrepresented the general thoughts. I do think probably Jenna does like the fishing game. Otherwise, he would have like probably talked more about it in the rant over here. But I do think that the take that Glaive has as a whole, I think it should be generally the universal take that a game should have low stress, permanent sort of content that exists for the casual audience that doesn't require massive time commitment or pressure to complete if you're somebody that likes the combat more. And similarly, right, there are plenty of people in Wuwa that maybe don't want to engage super sweaty with the combat. And so there's a lot of stuff like holograms or maybe like the TOA or Weewa that they're not doing. And so giving them options to make the player base, you know, to address every single part of the player base, giving them options for things to do, things to spend their time on that is much lower stress, is not necessarily a bad thing either. I think it's a bit of a potentially complicated issue, but I have faith in Kuro Games, especially knowing how they implemented the dorm system in PGR. I have faith in Kuro Games in what they plan on doing. I do think that there is going to be some sort of permanent minigame coming in the future, but I do think that it's hopefully not going to be as time consuming as what we saw in the fishing event. But that's just my personal take on it. Let me know what you all think, and peace.